Okay, here I am at the National Botanic Garden of Wales, and I'm going to be doing some Ein Plein Air painting tutorials and some quick tip videos at this beautiful spot in West Wales. I hope you can make it down here at some point. It's a beautiful day out, amazing gardens, lots to see, and the Regency Restoration Project, which is open for its first year at the moment. So come and have a look at my tutorials and maybe learn a few things. Okay, bye for now. Okay, here I am. This is the great glass house behind me. I don't know if you can see that. And there's a panorama of the landscape that we're going to be painting, and the sculpture with Paxton Tower just in the distance. So I've got myself a very cosy wall to sit on and all my materials set out in front of me. I've got an arm to record with and all that sort of stuff. So next time you see me, I will be painting the view through the sculpture to Paxton's Tower. Okay, so we're going to do our best with this one. I've got a lawnmower in the background. As it's a botanic garden, there's obviously always work going on. The wind is also whistling, and it's whistling through the sculpture in front of me and making like a sort of recorder noise, which is quite sweet actually. A bit of a wind sculpture going on. The weather is good so far, but let's see how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to choose a brown. I'm going to use watercolour pencils here. I've got watercolour pencils from W.H. Smith. You can buy them anywhere, art shops, Tesco, you know. They tend to vary in quality, so it's a bit sort of hit and miss as to whether you get one that actually works. So I will take a picture or two of the view that I'm looking at so you can screenshot it. Watch this tutorial and then you can have a go yourself. But what I'm looking at the moment, again, I'm going to span over 2 pages here, panoramic view, but I wanted to focus on this beautiful circle, which is part of this sculpture. So I'm just going to loosely draw in a circle, and then it has an arm which comes down here projecting forward, and then there's another piece that links the sculpture. So the circle itself is made of metal and the arm is made of wood, so I will try and get that texture in. So just in case you haven't used watercolour pencils before, you tend to sort of draw with them, and then you can use water to blend them. So I'm just loosely sketching in. Now, as with everything, make sure that the distant landscape is the right size. So many times I've had students who enlarge the distant landscape mainly because they love it so much. So you tend to, when you've got something in your vision that is wonderful, you tend to make it larger. So mountains are always problematic, etc., etc. So one really important exercise is make sure that your distant subject is the right size before you go anywhere with it. So I'm going to draw the hill coming down here, and then there are distant hills in the background, very faint but distant hills coming down there. And then we've got some more, this goes down to Vellingat, which is where I've just been, around the lakes and where the waterfalls are. So it's really beautiful. If this lawnmower gets any closer, I might have to stop, or you might just have to cover your ears for a while until it's done. Okay, so that's basically it really. We've got the Paxton Tower, We've got the distant sky, we've got the sculpture. Actually, the sculpture is sitting on a hill, so I need to make sure I put that in so it doesn't look like it's floating in midair. Okay, so next thing is to start applying colour. So depending on, I've got this set here, like I said, it's very basic. I've lost some of the pencils, 2 of the pencils have gone missing somewhere. But I've got a variety of colours, and again, you've just got to work with what you've got. So it's, what are we on? July the 7th today. So we're very much in the summer. So the greens are very green and the woodland is very full of colour. So we can go really bright and we can use a variety of greens in our picture. Whereas if we were in spring, I would tend to go for fresher greens, greens which have lots of yellow in them. And if you were to do that, what you would do is undercoat these areas with yellow. There's a really nice sweep coming down there of green, so I'm going to put that in. And that would give you that sort of freshness that you need in your picture for a spring effect. Whereas when you go into summer, you've got the deeper tones of green, so you would probably use the green straight from the pencil rather than mixing them up. Can you hear the whistle? It's so cute. It's like Toot Sweets off of what is it, Mary Poppins. That's what it reminds me of anyway. So I've got the green of the grass, the fields of the distant fields, and now I'm going to go in with some darker green for the woodland. So we've got some woodland coming up, and you can see I'm really roughly putting in the detail, really rough. There's some more woodland here. You can describe the sort of shapes of the tops of the trees a little bit better, but really we're just blocking in. Nice sweep there, but this section either side, there must be some sort of path or trail over there. Okay, and then it drops, and then it drops into Veningat, which comes down here. And now that they've finished the Regency restoration project, you can actually see some of the lake poking through the landscape down here, which is really nice. And because it's been manicured a little, we've got a very bright flash of green just there, and then the woodland again. You can use sort of swirly mark making just to give yourself a different kind of texture. You can mix up your greens. Maybe they could be richer in areas. They are quite yellow coming down here, so I'm just going to swirl some. And with this is a field here, so I'm going to put that back in. Some of the fields have been cut, so we could easily take something like a yellow ochre or a yellow or a brown even, and just put the odd mark where some of the fields have been manicured, cut for hay already. You normally get 2 or 3 lots off over the next few months of hay. And if you haven't got yellow ochre, then yellow is fine, and you can put in a little bit of brown on top maybe, just to knock it back a little if you need a slightly more brown. Now, distant hills. So distant hills go in with blue. These are way off. I mean, they're maybe 10 miles away. So as you go backwards, hills always get affected by the haze, and haze, the colour of haze is blue generally. So I always put the blue down, and I'm going to put some water in here like this. That's where the lake is. and then I'm going to put on top of that, I'm going to put the green. So we've got some hazy, very hazy patches, but then we've got some greener. But again, not too much detail, just rough representation of what's going on that far away. You really don't need much more. And then we're up into the sky. So we can just block in the sky. Now, if you've got clouds, you can just block it in, and then we can lift off the clouds later when we come to apply the water. So we just put in a lovely lot of blue in the background there, and then we can put in our Paxton Tower. So Paxton Tower is again quite far off in the distance, so again you wouldn't see a great deal of detail, but it's quite dark up there, so I'm going to put some darkness into the trees around Paxton Tower. Underneath the trees here is quite heavy, so you can put the shadows in of the trees. I'm going to add some more darker greens just in here, because we've got some trees almost pointing away. Those trees, they act like a marker, and they're pointing their way up to the tower, which is a really nice composition. So you can put that back in. Maybe again darken up the edges where they meet the land below. So in here you can also do this afterwards. So once you've got a great deal of colour down on your surface, you want to take some water. Now this paper does take some water, but not a great deal, so I don't add too much, but you can see that as soon as you apply water, those colours start to soften and bleed, so they will soften into one another and blend across the sky there. Another thing you can do with watercolour pencils is you can work into the wet surface, but the only thing you've got to be careful of is that it might tear your paper. So depending on how strong your paper is. Now you can see that my pencils are not great. They're not moving a great deal. They do move a little bit, but they don't move a great deal. So this might be what you experience with your pencils. You might have pencils that are just brilliant and move really well, but you might have ones that are not that great quality and they don't move very much. So try not to get frustrated if that happens. You can either just go and buy yourself some new ones or take them back if you're not happy with them. They do vary in quality, and not necessarily according to how much you spend on them. I've had very cheap watercolour pencils that have worked beautifully, and then I've had expensive watercolour pencils that don't work at all. So it is a matter of testing out these pencils and seeing what works well and what doesn't work well. So just like I said, just try them out and see how you go. But you can work in to the wet background with your pencils as well, and you'll get a softer surface coming through. You can also dip, I'll show you, you can dip the ends into the water and work with the pencil as well, and that will give you a softer result. So in that way you can work around those clouds. Okay, so just keep working into your surfaces even when they're wet, but just take into account of the fact that you will rip your paper if you press too hard, so just be careful. Okay, just go in really softly and you'll see that those pencils will work for you. Okay, you can darken areas up. You can even take your watercolour paint and work into areas if the colours are not coming out strong enough, but you can see as the pencil absorbs the water, it does start to break down a little bit more, so it becomes a little bit easier to handle. So just keep applying those colours, darkening things up, adding clouds, removing clouds. You can lift off watercolour pencil in the same way that you do with watercolour, and just keep working into your picture. And you'll see that I've ignored the sculpture so far because I'm going to put that back in later. The other thing to remember is to make sure that your watercolour pencils are sharp. So keep sharpening them. I recommend that you sharpen them with a scalpel rather than with a sharpener. The sharpener tends to shock your pencils and it breaks the leads. So just, if you're confident with a knife, take a knife to your watercolour pencils and sharpen them up when you need to. So you can see the watercolour paper is still wet and it's still absorbing the pencil quite nicely. So I just keep working in and hoping that my phone lasts long enough for you to see the results. If it doesn't, then don't worry, I will put another picture up of the finished article afterwards at the end of the tutorial. I've got quite a dark flash just down here on the edge of the lake. I can see that there are darker flashes, and we've got hedges coming in up here, so you can put the hedges in if you want to. There's a flash of colour up the top there by the Paxton's Tower. Again, don't go into too much detail in the distance. You can't see much. You know, it's only really a build-up of colour back there, mainly in blues. So don't go into too much detail because you will bring that forward and then it won't work. I'm going to take up the brown again. How are we doing? We're not doing too bad. So I'm going to take up the brown. I'm going to work into these foreground areas so that these foreground areas come forward on into the foreground, and that will send the distant areas backwards, further away. Less detail in the middle and almost no detail in the distance. Just areas of colour really. You definitely can't see individual trees. Just areas of colour. Okay, make Paxton's Tower stand out a little bit more. Maybe just put a little bit of something along there. Yeah, dark green. Just going to put a little bit of tree. I can just see a bit of detail just along that edge there. Just lightening and darkening areas up. I'm going to take a bit of purple. I'm going to put it into that section there. That draws the eye down into Verangat. The edges of the lake just there. That's one compositional tool to draw your eye down and into this distant section here, but then you've got another one going up here, so you've got 2 points of reference to work with compositionally. So, and then once we've got it to a certain stage, we can put this sculpture in. So again, if you're not confident drawing a circle, draw it in pencil, or even use a compass. I know I haven't got a compass with me today. You probably wouldn't have one. You wouldn't remember to bring one if you're painting Ein Plein Air, but draw a circle as best you can. Find something to draw around, maybe a coffee lid or something like that, and draw that sculpture in. Carefully. I mean, really, it doesn't matter if it's not quite right. And then if you remember, the circle's made out of metal, and the structure that it's held down by is wood. So we use that as a focal point in the foreground to draw our eye up to Paxton Tower. So there's the wooden section. I think I might just have enough battery power left to get this more or less finished. But like I said, this is one of the problems of working outside. You've got weather, you've got time, access, materials. There's all sorts of things to play with that might affect your success with your pictures. So that's why I say always bring a camera phone with you, or a camera. Make sure you take lots of shots so that you can work with them when you return home. Okay. And also, if you make a mistake, you can work on that at home too. And I realise that should be in the background behind there. So I'm going to take that purple, I'm just going to add some shadow in underneath here. And again, I'll apply some liquid to this area. Okay, so there's our sculpture. So the only thing I'm probably going to do, I'm just going to enhance various areas of this. I haven't got a black or a grey, so it's quite difficult to put on clouds, and I haven't got either a dark blue, so putting clouds in is going to be a bit problematic. However, we can use a bit of purple just to underpaint some of these clouds and add some drama into those distant structures. Again, apply the colour and then apply some water just to break down those solid areas. So again, I will probably work into this at home and include a finished article for you to paint from later. Okay, now anything else that I need to do? Oh yes, one of the things that I just saw that I need to include are some grasses. This will bring this hill, which the sculpture is sitting on, into the foreground. So if we put some just very simple grasses, I'm just using a red orange here because we're in summer, so the grasses, a lot of the grasses are going to seed already. So I would recommend that you finish your painting before you put these seed heads in and these grasses. You need to make sure you've got enough colour underneath here. I'm just putting them in so that you can see how to do it. So I've just got sharp pencils and I'm using a variety of tones just to put in little grasses. And also I've got, look, there's lots of clover, there's quite a lot of yellow rattle, some buttercups. So if you did want to bring in some floral sections into this foreground, then you could do, just to give it some colour. So again, wait until you've finished before you do this bit. I'm just doing it to show you what to do. Just take whatever colours you want to use. Oranges, we've got oranges, reds, purples, again, height of summer, so they would be warm colours. Okay, and you can leave those as marks rather than blending them with your water. Okay, so like I said, I'll put a finished picture up, and I'll also put a photograph up, so you can choose which area to paint. It might be that you just focus on this area here, or you can do a panoramic picture like I've done. And like I said, these are just sketches. This was one I did earlier of the lake. They're just quick glimpses of what you're experiencing at that moment. The photographs will back it up and enable you to sort of tweak areas when you return home. Okay, that's all for now, and I will see you next time. I hope you enjoy the Botanic Gardens as much as I do. Remember to visit. It's such a beautiful place. There's such a lot to do now. Bye for now.